You know, they say you never really know people until you need them most. Well, I learned that lesson on the coldest day of my life. And I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about standing alone at my husband's funeral, staring at empty chairs where my children should have been. 47 years of marriage, and when it came time to say goodbye, I was the only one there. Let me take you back a bit, so you understand how we got here. My name is Margaret, though everyone's always called me Maggie. I'm 73 years old now, and I've lived in the same small town in Indiana my whole life. Born and raised where everybody knows everybody, or at least they used to. Thomas and I, we met at a church social when we were just teenagers. He was 18, I was 16, and I knew right then he was the one. His smile could light up a room, I swear to you. We got married in 1972, and Lord, we didn't have much. Thomas worked at the plant, and I stayed home with the babies when they came. 3 children we had, Jennifer, Michael, and Susan. They were our whole world. Everything we did was for them. We scrimped and saved, made sure they had what we never did. Opportunities, college funds, nice clothes for school. Thomas worked double shifts some weeks just to make sure they never went without. Those were good years, even when they were hard. We had Sunday dinners together, holidays where the house was full of laughter. I thought we were building something that would last forever. I thought family meant something. Thomas was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, they said, and the doctor's face told me everything before his words did. We had maybe a year, possibly 2 if we were lucky. I remember Thomas squeezing my hand in that office, trying to be strong for me like he always was. That night, we called the kids together and told them. They cried, they hugged him, they promised they'd be there every step of the way. And at first, they were. Jennifer came by every Sunday with her family. Michael called twice a week to check in. Susan, our youngest, she'd video chat with her daddy from California, where she'd moved for her career. It felt like maybe this terrible thing would bring us closer together, you know? Like maybe facing death would remind us all what really mattered in life. But as the months went on, things changed. The visits got shorter, then less frequent. The phone calls dried up. Jennifer started having conflicts with her book club schedule. Michael's work got busier. Always another meeting, another deadline. Susan stopped answering when we called, texting back hours later with apologies about being swamped. I watched my husband's face every time they canceled, every time they had an excuse. He never said anything, but I could see the hurt settling deep in his eyes. Thomas never complained about it, not once. That was just his way. He'd make excuses for them, say they had their own lives to live, their own responsibilities. But I'd find him sometimes, sitting in his chair, looking at old photo albums from when they were little, just sitting there quiet, turning pages with those hands that had worked so hard for them all those years. The last 6 months were the hardest. Thomas couldn't walk anymore without help. He needed round-the-clock care, and I gave it gladly. I'd been his wife for over 40 years. There was nowhere else I wanted to be. But Lord, I was tired. I'm not a young woman anymore, and caring for someone who's dying, it takes everything you have. I asked the kids if maybe they could come stay for a week. Give me a little break. Let me catch my breath. Jennifer said she couldn't possibly. She had her daughter's soccer tournament that month. Michael had a business trip to Seattle that couldn't be rescheduled. Susan didn't even respond to that message. I ended up hiring a home health aide 2 days a week, paying for it out of our savings that we'd put away for emergencies. I suppose this qualified as one, though it wasn't the kind we'd imagined. Thomas passed on a Tuesday morning in October. The leaves were just starting to turn, his favorite time of year. He'd always loved autumn, the way the air got crisp, the smell of wood smoke from people's fireplaces. He went peacefully. I was holding his hand, telling him it was okay to let go. His last words were, "Take care of them. meaning the kids. Even at the end, he was thinking about them, worrying about them, loving them more than they'd ever know. I called each of them within an hour of his passing. I was calm. I didn't fall apart on the phone. I just told them their daddy was gone, and the funeral would be Saturday at 2 o'clock at First Baptist Church. Now here's where it gets hard to tell, because even now, months later, I still can't quite believe what happened. Jennifer called me back that same evening. She was crying, said she was devastated, and then she told me she couldn't make it to the funeral. Her husband had won tickets to some concert in Chicago. Front row seats, been planning it for months. Could they possibly do a memorial service later instead? Maybe at Thanksgiving. I stood there holding that phone, and I couldn't speak for a full minute. A concert. Her father's funeral or a concert, and she chose the concert. I finally found my voice and said, "Jennifer, this is your daddy's funeral. There won't be another one. This is it. This is goodbye." She got defensive, said I was being manipulative, that grief was a personal journey, and she'd mourn in her own way. Then she hung up on me. Michael texted me the next day. A text message, mind you, not even a phone call. Said he was so sorry. But his son had a birthday party that Saturday. Been planned for weeks. Already paid the deposit on the bounce house. The kid was turning 6. Couldn't miss that. He'd come visit the grave the following weekend instead. A bounce house party. His father's funeral or a 6-year-old's birthday party. I didn't even respond to that text. What was there to say? Susan finally answered my call on Thursday. She'd been at some corporate retreat in wine country. Her phone had been off. She was upset. I could hear it in her voice. But then she told me she'd just made partner at her firm. This promotion, it was everything she'd been working toward for 5 years. There was a mandatory celebration dinner Saturday night with all the senior partners. Her attendance wasn't optional. Missing it could jeopardize everything she'd built. She'd fly home next month, spend a whole week. We'd have a proper memorial then, a work dinner. They all had their reasons, don't they always? And each one probably made perfect sense to them in their own heads. I called our pastor, Reverend Williams, and told him it might be a small service. I didn't tell him why. I was too ashamed. Ashamed of my children. Ashamed that somehow I'd raised them to be the kind of people who could do this. Where had I gone wrong? What had Thomas and I failed to teach them? We'd given them everything, but somehow we'd forgotten to give them the one thing that mattered most. The understanding that family shows up, especially when it's hard, especially when it hurts. Friday night, I sat alone in our bedroom, looking at the suit I'd picked out for Thomas to wear. Navy blue, his favorite, the tie I'd bought him for our 45th anniversary. His good shoes, polished and ready. I'd been married to this man since I was 19 years old. He'd been my best friend, my lover, my partner in everything. We'd raised 3 children together, bought our first house together, buried his parents and mine together. We'd weathered every storm life threw at us, side by side. And now, I was going to bury him alone. The weight of that realization, it nearly crushed me. Saturday morning came too quickly. I got up before dawn, couldn't sleep anyway. Put on my black dress, the one Thomas always said made my eyes look pretty. Did my hair and makeup, trying to look presentable. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get my earrings in. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. When did I get so old? When did those lines get so deep around my eyes? The funeral home had done a beautiful job with Thomas. He looked peaceful, finally, free from the pain that had racked his body those last few months. I'd brought photographs for a memory table, pictures from our whole life together, our wedding day, him in that powder blue tuxedo that was so fashionable back then, the kids as babies, Thomas holding each one with such pride and tenderness, family vacations, Christmas mornings, his retirement party from the plant after 32 years, a whole life displayed on a folding table. The church was all set up, flowers everywhere from people in town who'd known Thomas. He'd been respected, well-liked. He'd coached Little League for 15 years, volunteered at the food bank, helped folks fix their cars when they couldn't afford a mechanic. People knew him, genuinely cared about him. I thought surely someone would come. Surely the church wouldn't be completely empty. 2:00 came. Reverend Williams stood at the front looking uncomfortable. The organist played Amazing Grace, Thomas's favorite hymn. I sat in the front pew, alone. I kept turning around, thinking maybe they'd surprise me. Maybe they'd walk through those doors at the last minute. A few people from church came, bless their hearts. Mrs. Henderson from down the street, the one Thomas used to shovel snow for every winter. Bill Murphy, who'd worked with Thomas at the plant, retired now like he was. Maybe 15 people total, in a church that held 200, but not one of my children, not one of my grandchildren. The 3 people Thomas and I had created, raised, loved more than life itself. They couldn't be bothered to show up. The service was lovely. Reverend Williams did his best. He talked about Thomas's kindness, his work ethic, his love for his family. That last part nearly broke me. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, trying to keep my composure. But inside I was screaming. I was furious and heartbroken, and so deeply, profoundly disappointed in the people my children had become. How do you mourn your husband and the loss of your children's character at the same time? After the service, we went to the cemetery. It was cold, that bitter October cold that cuts right through you. They lowered Thomas into the ground, while I stood there, clutching a single rose. Our marriage had produced 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and not one of them could stand with me at his graveside. Mrs. Henderson held my hand. This woman who was practically a stranger compared to family, she showed more love than my own flesh and blood. Back at the church, they'd set up a reception, the way you do. Little sandwiches, coffee, cookies. People tried to make small talk, offer condolences. Everyone was too polite to ask where my children were, but I could see the question in their eyes. I made it through somehow, said all the right things, thanked everyone for coming. Then I went home to our empty house. Their house once, just mine now. I walked through rooms that suddenly felt too big, too quiet. Thomas's reading chair sat empty. His coffee mug still in the dish drainer from Tuesday morning, the last cup he ever had. His crossword puzzle book on the side table, half finished. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I poured myself a glass of Thomas's whiskey, the good stuff he saved for special occasions, and I let myself fall apart. I cried until I couldn't breathe, until my whole body ached. I cried for Thomas, for the goodbye he deserved but didn't get. I cried for myself, facing this new reality alone, and I cried for my children, for what they'd lost and didn't even know it, for the people they'd become that I didn't recognize anymore. The next morning, Jennifer called. She was cheerful, said the concert had been amazing. Then she asked how the funeral went. How do you even answer that? I told her it was fine. People came. We buried her father. She didn't seem to notice the coldness in my voice, or maybe she did, and just chose to ignore it. She said she'd been thinking, maybe Christmas we could all get together, have a big family gathering to celebrate Daddy's life. Sure, honey, I said. Sure we can. Michael sent flowers to the house the following week. Expensive ones, from that fancy florist in the city. The card said, "In loving memory of Dad." I put them straight in the trash. Susan finally called 2 weeks later. She'd been meaning to reach out sooner, she said, but work had been crazy. She wanted to know if I was doing okay, if I needed anything. What I needed, I told her, was for my children to have been at their father's funeral. There was a long silence on the phone. Then she got angry, said I was being unfair, that she'd explained about the work dinner. Did I want her to throw away her career after all they'd sacrificed for it? That word, sacrificed, it stuck with me. What did they know about sacrifice? Thomas and I, we sacrificed every single day for them. We sacrificed new cars so they could have braces. We sacrificed vacations so they could go to college. Thomas sacrificed his health, working himself into the ground so they'd have better lives than we did. And they couldn't sacrifice one concert, one birthday party, one work dinner to say goodbye to him. I've done a lot of thinking these past months. I look at old photographs and try to figure out where it went wrong. Were we too generous? Did we give them so much that they never learned to give back? Did we shield them from hardship so completely that they never developed empathy? Or is this just what happens sometimes? You raise children with all the love in your heart, and they grow up to be strangers who hurt you in ways you never imagined possible. The truth is, I don't have answers. What I have is a new understanding of what really matters. It's not the big house or the successful career or the fancy things. It's showing up. It's being there when someone needs you, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's hard. It's understanding that some moments in life, you don't get them back. Thomas's funeral was one of those moments. My children chose parties and promotions and convenience over being there for their father's final goodbye, and they can never get that back. Never. I don't know what happens next with my relationship with my kid. They call sometimes, make small talk, act like nothing's wrong. I'm polite, I'm civil. But something broke that day that I don't think can be fixed. Trust, maybe. Respect, certainly. The belief that family means something beyond shared DNA and childhood memories. I spent 54 years being a mother, and I thought I knew what that meant. Turns out I only knew half the story. The other half is accepting that sometimes the children you raised don't grow into the people you hoped they'd be. But I'll tell you what I learned standing alone at that funeral. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that kindness often comes from unexpected places, like Mrs. Henderson holding my hand at the graveside. I learned that a good marriage, a real partnership like Thomas and I had, that's rarer and more precious than I ever knew. And I learned that at the end of your life, what matters isn't how many people you loved, it's how you loved them. Thomas, he loved fully, generously, without keeping score. And I was lucky enough to be loved by him for 47 years. My children missed their chance to show that kind of love, and they'll have to live with that. As for me, I'm still here, still standing, carrying Thomas's memory and the lessons of that empty funeral with me every day.